welcome to today's video. I'm Montana Politic, and now let's get started. So, the GOP recently released, and GOP's National Senatorial Republican Committee recently released their targets for the 2022 midterms. So first, let's get started by looking at which party holds each seat. I'm not going to bother classifying them by leans. I'm just going to go straight into it. Vermont, Connecticut, Maryland. I fucked that up. Georgia. This seat is Joe Nassau's seat. They haven't updated it yet, but it's not being contested. And Hawaii is also a safe seat. So is New York and Vermont. That's Angus King's seat. And then for the GOP, Alaska, they're probably going to keep, so it's Utah, Idaho. Utah's interesting, though, because Mitt Romney's primary, but Oklahoma, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. And if I didn't click Kentucky, let me fix that. So yeah, it's a 50-50 Senate. Now, obviously, there's some other competitive seats like Wisconsin. I mean, Georgia is competitive, and Iowa to some extent. And I will be making a video about Mitt Romney in Utah, so stay tuned for that. And the House targets by the GOP House Committee, but the GOP released 6 targets for the U.S. Senate. So let's go. I'm going to first select all of them and then go into detail. They selected Nevada, where there's Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. Arizona, where there's the newly elected Senator Mark Kelly. Georgia, where there's an again newly elected Senator Raphael Warnock. New Hampshire, where there's Senator Maggie Hassan. Illinois, I don't even know who's the senator because it's just not competitive. I don't know why they chose it. And Colorado, where they have my Senator Michael Bennet. Now, let's take a look at some of the results. So let's just start with the weirdest of all, Illinois. Illinois went for Democrat. Barack Obama was from that state. It went Democratic on a big scale. Let's just look at the results first. So in the Senate election, according to the New York Times, the Democrats flipped Illinois. They got a huge margin. You can see, like 54-55%, the Republican getting 30-40%. That was a huge margin for them. But why do they need to flip it? Shouldn't they have been controlling it? You can see by size of lead, they had like the biggest, probably one of the biggest leads. 60.98 in here, 70.4. You can see the biggest lead ever. That's why it's interesting. And if we had New Hampshire, they flipped. Maggie Hassan flipped it too. So those are the only ones that seem competitive. So if we go back to the 2010 midterms, where the same seats were contested, in fact, the Democrats lost 6 here. The Republicans gained 5 because of the party switch, and plus Alaska and stuff. So you can see, Republicans won Illinois, and they kept New Hampshire seat. But why? Well, in Illinois, after Barack Obama's election and stuff, the governor was trying to sold the Senate seat to the highest bidder, and there's public backlash, which is why it went to a Republican. In New Hampshire, there's a Republican incumbent because the state is quite progressive on many issues, but Republican on others, or more conservative on others. But that was the only reason. And here you can see New Hampshire is probably a close race to some extent. But the fact is, Illinois has no contest at all. And now, if we look at some of the other states, we could see they had Colorado mentioned as a state. The fact is, if we look at the Colorado results, Michael Bennet has kept the seat for a while. Democrats had it for a long time. Sure, they got 44%. It's way better than Illinois, but the fact is, it's just not competitive. John Hickenlooper won his seat just in 2020 by quite a big margin over Cory Gardner. So just a fact, Democrats are taking control statewide. The state has produced people like Lauren Boebert in some of the more conservative areas. The city of Rifle, I think the 4th Congressional District. But the fact is, it doesn't matter because Democrats control most of the state Senate seats, because just like Georgia, Democrats won it, but there's still Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, this is back when Johnny Isakson held a seat that Raphael Warnock now does. But then if we head back to the map, there are 3 more seats. I'll get to Georgia last. Let's do Nevada now. So Nevada has been Democratic for a while. When the seat became open, so if we head back to and Illinois, Colorado. So Michael Bennett was the incumbent, but Catherine Cortez Masto was not. That's why I guess it was slightly more competitive because the incumbency advantage wasn't there, and the Republicans had a successful program. I mean, it was 2016. Trump did well. Obama was there for 8 years. There was some backlash against him, I guess. So that's why it was so close. And now Arizona. I mean, it looks worrying, doesn't it? But look, Arizona's been red here. It's red here. But now, if you look at it, they have two Democratic centers. The results were actually not that, because John McCain was a maverick. If I was a Democrat in Arizona, I probably would have voted for him. But to be honest, because he's really admirable. He stood up for healthcare. He's just the kind of person he is. So many Democrats might have just done split ticket voting, and plus Democrats control both Senate seats. Democrats have many good positions statewide, and the Republican Party is having an internal war. I mean, Kelly Ward, the chairwoman, versus like Cindy McCain, Jeff Flake, Doug Ducey. The Democrats are just gonna keep that seat. Now for the last seat, Georgia. So I think we can establish that Republicans for sure are not going to win Illinois or Colorado. Oh, what am I doing? They cannot win. They're not going to win Illinois or Colorado unless Biden messes up big time. And now let's actually use my favorite tiering tool. New Hampshire is slightly more competitive. Nevada just isn't. Arizona is also like that, but just not. Georgia is the only really competitive seat. It is a tilt. Let me tell you why. Johnny Isakson have held the seat for a while. And yes, so he got 54%, but Joe Biden won the state. They elected John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock to the Senate. The fact is, if the Republicans win this, to be honest, it doesn't matter because let's just say the GOP wins it, okay? Democrats are going to win the Pennsylvania open seat because Pat Toomey retired. Sure, now the Democrats currently hold 50-50. If they lose it, it's bad for Democrats. I agree. But the fact is, they're probably not going to lose it because if Biden's vaccine distribution goes well, they're not. The only worry for Democrats there is the fact that the $2,000 check stimulus isn't happening because that might get them to lose popularity. And if David Perdue running, as you saw in one of my other videos, David Perdue running for the seat might be more concerning because Kelly Loeffler lost so badly because of how unpopular she was statewide. But Perdue was actually quite popular. Ossoff barely won over him compared to Raphael Warnock's 2% lead over Kelly Loeffler. So that's the only really competitive seat. But I personally believe the Democrats are going to eke a hold on it because, I mean, they're going to invest a lot of money into that seat because it's really historical for them. So I think the Democrats are going to keep the United States in 2022.